Blog Talk Radio.
Choices, decisions, frustrations, and pain. Knowing I'm going to forget her someday. While I still can, I'll challenge all my loved ones, every friend, to look inside their hearts and understand that I will love them. I will love them while I still can.
Well, hello and welcome everyone to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm thrilled to be with you today. We're going to have a fascinating show with a couple of great personalities with us today. But before I get into the show and who's going to be with us, I always like to tell everybody a little bit about Alzheimer Speaks Radio because, as usual, we always get new listeners from far and wide. And Alzheimer Speaks Radio is basically an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort. And we feel it's really important to do that on a global fashion. We're all so interconnected, and we all have so much information to share. And so here at Alzheimer Speaks, we like to hear from everybody, from those who actually are diagnosed with the disease to people who are caring for their loved ones, from researchers and advocates, musicians, movie makers, and people providing a variety of services, products, and tools to help us live better with this disease. We believe by joining forces and sharing knowledge and just having these everyday conversations about life with dementia, we're going to be able to remove the stigmas attached to memory loss and really help people get back to living with purpose and reclaiming their lives. We know that we're making an impact thanks to all of you in terms of you sharing what it is that we do, if it's sharing the radio show here or the blog or the resource directory or Dementia Chats, which is our webinars where we interview people with dementia. All of those things have a huge impact because you never know who in your circle is going to need this information next. And the more we all put it out there and just make it comfortable for people to tap into, the more likely we're going to be able to help those in need. So, again, I thank you for helping us get the recognition of being the number one influencer online regarding Alzheimer's, according to ShareCare and Dr. Oz. We definitely could not do that without your support. And so, again, just really want to thank you because it is making a huge difference. If you think you might be a good person for one of our future shows, please get a hold of me. I'm always open to listening. You can email me. You can use your chat box here on the show, or you can go to our website at www.alzheimerspeaks.com, and there on the top there's a big contact button, and you can either email me or call me, whatever is most comfortable for you. We would also encourage you to participate in the conversation, and you can do that by calling in live at 714-364-4757. That's 714-364-4757. Or you can use your chat box, and I'll be monitoring that throughout the show. But we'd love to hear your questions and your comments as we go along with the show. I also like to highlight some of my favorite businesses that I really think help people in terms of dealing with this disease. And Alzheimer's Disease International is a fantastic organization located in London, but helping people around the world. They are the association of all the Alzheimer's associations worldwide. And they just have some new studies released, research information, and offering up statistics. There's information on dietary that was just released there as well, and they're really keeping us up to date on the global impact. So check them out, Alzheimer's Disease International, or you can go to www.alz.co.uk. And if you're looking for some alternatives on how to deal with dementia, the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation is an absolute fabulous organization that can help you out. They really work on some holistic modes, and I think you'll find some great tools and information and resources on their site. You can go to alzheimersprevention.org. Again, that's alzheimersprevention.org to get the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. The Lewy Body Dementia Association is also really important because many people are dealing with different variables, different types of dementia, and they will be able to help you with specifics regarding that disease, just as the Association for Frontal Temporal Degeneration can help you if you've got frontal temporal dementia. And the National Aphasia Association can help those that are having difficulty with their speech. So those organizations, again, you're going to want to check out. And then if you are interested in getting involved in research and being part of a study group, the AlzheimersStudies.com has a clinical trial on tau, and I know that they're working on a couple others that will be launching soon. So go to AlzheimersStudies.com for more information on some upcoming trials. And then recreation, I think, is so important in socialization. And so I'm just going to mention a couple of companies there. Music First with Choral Health, who has devised what I call a music prescription that can help us change our mood. And this works not just for people with dementia, but all of us. And they actually have made it into an app called Music First, so you can find that on iTunes, or you can just go to Choral Health, and that's CORO health.com. And then there is Puzzle with Me. A lot of people like to do puzzles. Puzzles are really important, but they need to be smaller in number of pieces, bigger in size, more age-appropriate, and Puzzles with Me has designed a puzzle that's perfect for people with dementia. Jiminy Wicket will get you out playing croquet. It's an intergenerational game that has been devised to work well with those dealing with dementia. And then, of course, the Purple Angel Project, I'd be amiss if I did not talk about them. They are just doing some wonderful things around the world. And if you are not familiar with the Purple Angel Project, go to alzheimersspeaks.com and then go to our About page, and there you will find specific information regarding the Purple Angel Project. So let me go ahead and introduce our first guest. Her name is Paula Spencer Scott, and she is the author of a book called Surviving Alzheimer's, Practical Tips and Soul-Saving Wisdom for Caregivers. And this was just released in 2014. She is also a contributing editor of Caring.com. She is a fellow of the MetLife Foundation Journalists in Aging program and a former columnist for Women's Day magazine. Paula is the author and or co-author of 11 other books as well. So this woman really knows how to write. She has been personally touched by dementia, as 4 of her close family members have had it, including her father and her grandfather. So welcome to the show, Paula. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I am thrilled to have you. This book that you have written, Surviving Alzheimer's, I think it really has a little different twist in terms of what you've delivered. So I'd like you to explain to our audience what is the difference that you see about your book compared to all the others out there?
Well, as you mentioned, my background is as a medical journalist and a writer. I've written a number of books with doctors, and then I happened to spend 7 years developing all the Alzheimer's materials for Caring.com and some other places. And I saw that there's obviously this tremendous need out there, but I felt like there was a need for kind of a best-of book that summed up in a really quick scan, quick read format the main things that caregivers or people who are taking care of someone in their family who has Alzheimer's or another dementia need to know, and something that was also caregiver-centric, that was as much about you and your experience helping this person as well as how to help them. So to do that, I canvassed all the talked to so many people in my job over the years and talked and kind of got the best of perspectives of all these people and boiled down what you need to know from all these different perspectives. A doctor and a geriatric psychiatrist, people who work with activities, people who work with communications, and then took their advice and also looked at just behavior by behavior by behavior that you encounter and why is it happening, what you should do about it. And just really try to distill everything that I had learned personally and professionally into a really quick, fast, accessible, and helpful format.
Well, and I think that you were successful in doing that. I decided to do something a little bit different with your book, and also with Vicki, who will be our second guest today. And I decided to bring them to our memory cafe and try to get some book reports out of people and have them review them. And your book is a big book. It's 341 pages, which sometimes can be overwhelming to people. But the response to your book was amazing. I actually still don't have it back because it's making the rounds. People absolutely adored it. And so I thought what I might do is just throw in some of their comments, and I'll start with the first one by Kathy. She said, this book is easy to read and understand. And to me, that's just so critical because sometimes things aren't easy to digest. And she said the table of contents allows the reader to look up specific topics that they may address a particular question or problem. And so that is just so resourceful because I think, when you're dealing with dementia, as you well know, you need quick answers and quick resources. You can't dig and scurry because you just don't have that extra time, to put into it. She said the first 60 pages has different experts on dementia and Alzheimer's and gives their advice and perspectives on dementia and caregiving. And the remainder of the book, she says, deals just with everyday problems in the format really examines particular issues. And she's got that underlined and describes the why. And she underlined that too. Why it happened, and then give suggestions to try this. And she just thought it was really brilliant. And she thought it was absolutely a fantastic mode. And she said, and may add tips on the ways to help your caregiver cope. And this is such a stressful disease for all involved. And so I thought it was, when I perused it as well, I thought it was really well laid out and designed. But can you tell us, let's go into, what did you see as some of the biggest challenges facing people who are dealing with caring for someone with dementia?
Well, you hit it on the head when you talk about stress because sometimes it's a big crisis. Somebody falls or something big happens, but a lot of the time it's just that low-grade worry. You're worried about your time and getting everything done. You're worried about money. You're worried about your interactions with this person that you love and how they're changing. There's just always something. There's, family conflicts burbling in the background. I mean, stress is just the one constant theme that I hear from everybody, no matter how much they're happy to be, providing care, and no matter how much they love the person, no matter how well they're doing the job, everybody feels it. And so that was kind of the starting point for the book, and everything that I wanted to put in it was all geared toward how do you, lower that stress level so that you can be a good caregiver for the long haul and be there for the person and do the things that you need to do. How do you get those answers in a way that goes beyond like the cliche, take a bubble bath. I laugh every time I see that advice. I'm like, oh yeah, right, I have time to take a bubble bath. Real practical advice on how do I do that. And I think how you do that is by some of the things that the experts and the advice in the book talks about is knowing what to do, knowing what to expect, knowing what's normal, knowing you're not, crazy and should beat yourself up with guilt because you sometimes feel, resentful or sad or, guilty. That knowing that all those things are normal, I think, is all really validating. And so everything in the book kind of comes through the lens of the caregiver and their stress level and what are things that will empower you to kind of, lower that. You can't make the stress go away, but how can you live with it in a way that's productive for you and for the person with dementia?
Yeah, and it is, and that, stress, it kind of ebbs and flows with this disease, just like it does in our everyday life. It doesn't really change. It probably just intensifies, more than anything. Now, you had put in the, why this and try this kind of approach to dementia. Why did you think that was important to have in the book?
I think why is such a key word. When you understand the why, it allows you to handle everything so much better. So you talk about somebody doing the book report and talking about the behavior. So the bulk of the book is looking at very specific situations, from eating to pacing to stressors that you might be experiencing yourself. And for each one, I go through the why. The first impulse that we often have to a puzzling behavior is, how do I get her not to do that, right? Or how do I make him stop? But I think what's more useful is to stop and ask the question, well, why are they doing that? And you don't always, know the answer right off. And so I kind of walk through a method for figuring that out. I mean, the why is often rooted in the nature of the disease, right? You can't rationalize, you can't you lose the ability to form new memories, and those capabilities. It's like, you always hear the expression, blame the disease, right? That helps you understand why someone is behaving the way they are. And then you play a little bit of detective. What is it about the situation? When does it happen? Who's there? What else is going on that might be contributing? What happened before? What happened after? How often does it happen? And then also the question, who are you dealing with? You're dealing with this person you know pretty well. What is it about a lot of their core essential personality is still there. What about their likes and dislikes might be causing them to behave the way they are? And when you go through all these things and just get a sense of the why, it's a way to buy you a little peace of mind and to give you kind of more compassion and empathy for what's going on. So instead of starting from a place of, oh my God, like, how do I stop this? I'm so freaked out about this. It's, allows you to say, okay, wait, why is this happening? What's going on? Let me put myself in their shoes and get some valuable clues that help you kind of prevent or avoid the situation. It's just a different way of coming at the situation than starting from a place of sort of, frustration or worry or fear.
Yep. Rick has made a comment in the chat box here. I'm going to go back to the stress here because I missed this one. But I said sometimes stress is much more than just mentally. When you're a patient, you can have stress of the soul. What would you say to Rick?
Well, for one, first, that I love that expression, stress of the soul, and it's why I actually do go into great detail. After I talk about behaviors, I have a whole section that's just all about, personal and family stressors, because sometimes, you can, it's everything else that gets to you. It's all those kinds of just, sometimes it's just a cumulative effect of everything, and and that it's normal and it's utterly, predictable. And one of the things I talk about is getting at the underlying, reasons behind stress. So we think we're stressed because of something that someone has done or said to us. But really it's like deeper things, and this gets at that soul level. We're stressed because we don't have control over the situation. We're stressed because, we have kind of expectations that aren't, being met, or we have stress because we're uncertain about things, or because, we're not giving ourselves enough credit, or we feel isolated. All those are sort of the underlying things, and we think it's the top line stressor that's got us stressed out, and it does, but really it's like beneath that. Those are the harder things, I think, that really sap at people. And in the book I go through different ways you can kind of, twist that, questions you can ask yourself to help get at, a better way of dealing with, like if you're feeling like out of control about the situation, have I done everything I can, to try to change it? Can I say no more often? Who can I reach out to for help? Have I asked this person or that person? Or, and it's kind of, a lot of it's reframing how you look at the tough situation, and knowing that there are always ways to deal with it and to get help, even though it often seems like you just feel so overwhelmed or alone.
Yeah, and as a caregiver, one who recently lost, I lost my mother just not quite a month ago. That term, stress of the soul, it's just so deep, just so deep. And I think a lot of times the stress has to do with loss. If we're loss or lost, where you just don't quite know what to do or how to do it. It's just such a significant change. It just doesn't feel comfortable. I kind of have that hominess and that comfort, and it's a big shift. And so, I think that can come into that too. Rick is saying it's hard to explain, but it does reach your very soul, and the caregiver can sometimes get some relief as well. And I think I can appreciate that, and I think we've all been to that level of stress where it just resonates throughout your whole body. When you can't find that place of peace and calmness.
With dementia care, what's layered onto everything else that's going on. I've written a lot. It's just a real interest of mine. Is all the emotions of caregiving, and this idea of anticipatory grief, or they call it ambiguous loss, where layered on top of everything else that's going on day in, day out, you are dealing with this sense of loss, even on a good day. That you're losing the kind of relationship, the exact nature of the relationship you once had as the person changes. And my dad was, he had the pleasant dementia. He was delightful. It was wonderful being with him, but you're always aware of that loss, and it's that sort of dogged, chronic thing. And, on top of everything else, it really can be overwhelming. And to some extent, that stress of the soul is something you can't make it go away. You just, to some extent, have to live with a little bit of it. And I think it's sort of the special, tie that all people who have been touched by Alzheimer's and dementia share. They all know that feeling. And it's hard to describe until you've been there.
Yeah, very, very much so, very much so. You write, in your book a lot about the underlying causes of stress. Can we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. Again, it's this idea that you feel the stress, but there are these sort of what I call them like almost like ultimate stressors, that are going on, and it's this sense of there's different things that cause them, but say, lack of control. You just feel like I feel stuck. I don't feel any good options. It's hopeless. Nobody asks me what I think. And if you can sort of change that way of thinking a little bit to, giving input or exerting your influence in small ways, even if it's not large ones, your brain is kind of action-oriented, and then you'll feel more like you're making progress and you have some control. There's certain themes, I think, that are just real common with dementia caregiving that feed that stress, and lack of control is one, and having unrealistic expectations, is another one. I'm the only one who gets it. Or you're your own worst enemy. I should be able to do better. I'm always disappointed when the way they do this and that, and it's kind of letting go of those oughts sometimes can be helpful. Uncertainty and fear is such a big one because you're always feeling, I don't know what to expect. How am I going to manage? What fresh hell awaits me today? You wake up on some days. And that's where, realizing that, that old cliche, knowledge is power, is just really, darn good advice. And there's always more facts you could collect or questions you could ask somebody. Or it's a way of kind of breaking apart the stress. And again, thinking about the why. Why am I stressed? Why did I, snap at the receptionist today? Well, I'm having a bad day. Why am I having a bad day? Well, because I'm really freaked out with worry right now, or I'm, feeling like I'm at sea. I'm out of control. And as you break things down a little bit further, I feel like you find helpful nuggets that can move you a little further down the road.
Now, Paula has written in and said she gets stressed when her symptoms appear when she's talking to others, and she feels embarrassed, and she doesn't really want to tell anybody that she has dementia. Any advice for her?
I think, you talk a lot about yourself, about, stigma. And I feel like the more we talk about it and find the language to talk about it, the more helpful it is for everyone. I need help with X. It sort of demystifies it for people. And so I find that can be helpful. Now, if you're at a place where you really don't want to and don't, feel like it's comfortable, then, you don't need to do that. But if you're sort of, on the fence, I always, tell people, it's like, the more we all talk, the better, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think, again, it's just so important that we break down the stigmas and the barrier regarding this disease, because it's just not fair. I mean, I can't even imagine not, being ill, having an illness, and feeling embarrassed about it. I mean, that's just so not right. That we,
but people used to be that way about. I'm sorry, but people used to be that way about cancer.
Yep.
That was a taboo word and a taboo diagnosis, and look how far we've come with that. And so I take some solace in that I think that same pattern will happen.
Yeah, it's just the more we all work together at breaking down those barriers and just having again these simple conversations like we're having today on the radio, it's huge. It's absolutely huge in terms of getting people to understand. I was on an AM channel here at Twin Cities Talk Radio, and we had so many people calling in with questions, and they don't know where to go. They don't know, and there's so many more resources out there than people know are out there, and that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
I developed Alzheimer Speaks was to try to pull those resources together so that people can find them and not judge what the next guy needs, because we all need different things at different times. And so much of this, especially when it comes with just our caring attitudes and how we view things. That can be used and multiplied in so many different ways in our lives to enrich it. That's for sure. I was looking, at your book. Not that I have it in front of me, but I went online to kind of look at it because again, they have it. And I just kind of wanted to highlight some of the things that you've broken down and some of the names that you have in this book, if that's okay with you. You've got some really well-known people. Bob DeMarco with the Alzheimer's Reading Room is in here. You have Lisa, is it Guther?
Guither,
Guither. Teepa Snow, Ken Robbins, Amy Goyer, Dave Truxell, Ann Bastings, Naomi File with Validation Program. You've got some great resources that you've talked to in this book. And then as far as how you've broken down this kind of table of contents, you address some issues that sometimes people don't like to talk about, the sexually related problems. Sometimes people can make inappropriate advances or masturbation in public or unwanted advances to spouse. And, I've even had it where people have told me that somebody doesn't want to sleep with their spouse because they don't know their spouse anymore.
Right.
And they said, I really like you, but I'm married. And how do you deal with those types of things? When behaviors change. And for couples, that's a huge thing when you've been married for years and stuff changes on that level. What did you find in terms of how people best dealt with some of those really personal, intimate issues that arose?
Well, the number one thing is that people are so relieved to talk about it when they finally have the opportunity, because it is something like, where are you going to, go to talk to people about it, and who will understand? In that section you talk about in the book about sexuality-related problems, I actually do divide it into two things. I talk about some of those disinhibition kinds of behaviors, I'm dressing in public and making advances, and then separately, I talk about spousal interactions, because I had done actually with Ken Robbins, who's a geriatric psychiatrist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I had done a whole series with him, which was so interesting, about the many different reactions that couples have. I mean, it's just, again, like everything, different for everyone. And some couples, talk about how one woman, I remember saying, he only seems like, he's there, when we're having sex. It's like old times, like old, everything else kind of falls away and we have these moments of connection. And then for other people, and this is very common as the disease goes on, is this sense of, they're more, the spouse is more and more dependent and more, you just don't see him or her as that sexual partner that you had in life. And so everybody is different and has different responses. And a lot of the good advice that people have to share is, it's about, thinking about what your partner would think if, positions were reversed, or just having somebody that you can talk to and think through this, whether it's a neutral third party, like even a therapist, or a friend, or not being afraid to confront it and think about it and what it means. And obviously, I'm a daughter, I'm a granddaughter. I have not been in a spousal situation, so everything I say on this subject, so it comes through these third parties and people that I've talked to. But I do know that it just ranks right up there in talk about stress for the soul, and one of the really hard things, because that's that is something that's a core of your relationship with this person, and when that relationship is just so changing, it does make you feel, sort of kind of fraught and alone, and wondering, what do other people do? What do I do? It's so normal.
Yeah, you also break down communication problems, and again, this is what Kathy was referring to in her book report, which was wonderful, when people can't find the right words, or they use nonsense words or gibberish, or they ask, what should I be doing, or they curse when they didn't used to, or they say mean and hurtful things, or they want to go home. I mean, those are just, we hear you just pinpointed probably the ones that people struggle with the most. And so I think that's fantastic, and I can see where Kathy said this is so helpful if you just kind of want to dive in and find out what's causing that, and what you could do. Mm-hmm.
Well, what I find in talking to people over the years and interviewing, again, because I'm a journalist, is people. There's a lot of wonderful books and materials out there, but you have to wade through a lot of narrative, a lot of background, and a lot of stuff. And what I find is that people want X happens. What are Y, Z that I can do about it? Just tell me here's exactly the problem. What are the kinds of things I can try? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And so I really did try to put in the things I kept hearing over and over again, or had lived through myself that people deal with, skin picking and wandering and shadowing and just all those every day, gets distracted in the middle of eating and won't eat. Those just common, frustration points or mystery points, that people just wanted to, my grandmother used to say that I want to go home, and you are home, but that's not the right answer. And so I found it really fascinating learning about why these things happen. And once you understand that why, it does give you patience, and it does give you ideas about what you can try to respond to it.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've got another question here from Paul, and she said, do you know of any volunteer organizations in which she could become involved in for dementia patients? She was diagnosed with mild to moderate dementia about 2 years ago, and she thinks she could still help other dementia patients at this point. Are you aware of any volunteer organizations?
Well, in regionally and locally, there are lots of different programs that are dependent on volunteer help, and I guess someplace like in your community, a local area on agency, might be able to point you to them. What I don't know is places that specifically want to use the gifts and insight of people who have mild cognitive impairment or dementia themselves, which I think would be a fabulous resource. There are early support groups, but I think it would be great to be part of a support group that was actually led by somebody who could share their experiences and lead people through talking. But I don't know of one thing that's sort of built around that kind of manpower.
Our local Alzheimer's Association here in Minnesota actually uses volunteers to be the first contact when someone gets diagnosed. So they are getting authorization from, at the time they go to the doctor, to say the first person who will be in contact for you from the Alzheimer's Association will actually be someone who's been diagnosed.
That's a great idea.
And that has worked so well because it just shifts the table, because everyone's shocked that they can have a coherent conversation with someone who is diagnosed, because the perceptions are so off the wall, in terms of end stages. That's what everyone pictures, and so it's just a great conversation. They also have a what do they call it? They do meetup groups. Where they all get together, and so it depends on Paul, I think how you're looking at volunteering. We do dementia chats where people with dementia volunteer their time to be part of our webinars, and we have general kind of educational conversations, but the public can ask questions as well. And Harry Urban also commented he is one of our Dementia Chat experts living with dementia, and Harry is saying, Paula, we're interested in finding dementia mentors. So I'm not sure
cool.
If that is with his Forget-Me-Not Facebook page that he's doing that, or I know there's a new Dementia Alliance group out working with Alzheimer's Disease International. But I think that there's, that's something that needs to be looked at more and more because there's so much to offer. So much to offer.
This gets back to this idea of stigma. I think people think it's just all black or white, right?
Yeah.
You've got a perfect brain or, you're screwed. And we all know that there's this huge, shades of gray in the middle. And I think when people are comfortable with those shades of gray, that's when we've all, taken a leap forward. And that's what's important for people to know and see. And how does that happen? That happens, by people like Paula, putting yourself out there and helping other people. So I think that any, starting with different local groups, my sense is what you just described, that I hear about people doing these sort of little, ad hoc programs. They're looking for people, whether it's something as formalized as a dementia mentor program or not, I don't know, but that everybody sees that as a valuable resource. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there are some dementia buddies that are working with medical schools, working with the students so that they really see what the disease looks like firsthand versus just reading it in a book. Big difference as we all know. With that. One of the things that I didn't see in your communication problems, and maybe you don't view this as a problem, or maybe it's in there and I'm just not seeing it, but when people repeat themselves, because that I think is a big stressor for a lot of care partners as well. Is that something that you addressed at all?
Yeah, I do. That's in there. It's called repeats the same question or comments over and over again, because it's the word problem I use loosely, but it's something that, causes people to, I think, lose patience and get annoyed even when they don't mean to, more than many other things. That's definitely in there. And it's, again, a case where the understanding, the why. I mean, I talk not only about how, the inability to form, new memories, to remember that you just asked it, but I talk about, sort of what you can, try, at first, what to do, not to do, watching your body language, using those bridge phrases that can help move the conversation in a new way. Yes, that reminds me about, tell me about. I've also heard that, and then sometimes you can, move the person off of that or figure out what the trigger is, and kind of move a trigger. So I give lots of, a dozen different little tips, things that have worked for people or people can try. And it's always situation specific. So exactly what works in one time, might not work the next. But there certainly are lots of things. And, for each of them, I talk about not only why it happens and what you can try, but I kind of talk about, more tips just to help you cope. So it's like that idea of, counting to 10 before you answer, the 30th time, or how to, that it's normal to feel stressed when you're trapped in one of those loops, and ways that you can get out of it, and again, realize that it's normal and you're not a bad person for feeling these very common feelings that we all have.
Yep, exactly. Now, in the book, you also go over kind of personal care problems, disliking bathing or won't bathe, wearing the same clothes over and over, inappropriate clothing. Again, great topics, because they are just very, very common factors, that people are dealing with all the time, with this disease. Can you give a quick tip? I don't want to have you give the whole book away, but just a quick tip, on a grooming issue for people in terms of why they do it and maybe what they can do differently?
Excuse me. The wearing the same clothes over and over again, excuse me, is such a common one. And I remember, with my dad, who was always, this very natty dresser, and laid in, he just would take something off and then he'd put it, lay out on the bed, and then before you knew it, he'd be wearing the same thing the next day after day. And it's some of why is it's just losing that ability to recognize that the clothes are dirty, or that they need to be they're not recognized as sort of dirty clothes. It's more that the visual cue is there they are, and I put them on again the next day. And one of the best things that worked for us, and that I've learned from lots of other people, is is having multiples of the same thing, and sort of literally getting in and sneaking it out, because he would set the clothes in a certain place, and that was the cue. That was what was on top, and what he would pick the first. And so it was sort of swapping out so that the clean thing was on top, and the dirty ones would get taken away. And knowing that there's a certain amount of comfort in wearing some of the same things over and over again. It's familiar, it's easy, and so that's where sort of the multiples come into place, and pruning out everything else, because you just want to make it all. It's all about making things as easy as possible. Just eliminating all the things the brain doesn't really need to think about, and can get turned down some wrong lanes as I go through the day, and just making things easy. And it's amazing how the simplest things really pay long dividends. Agree
so much. It's just a very interesting disease with a lot of commonalities, but yet a lot of differences, because every person is different, from the person with dementia to the person who's caring for them, as well as their environment. And it's so important that we take all of that into consideration when we're providing care. Now, in the book, you also talk about dental care trouble, and grooming and hairstyle and makeup. And I know for my mom, we ended up, she stopped brushing her teeth and lost all her teeth, and that was really difficult for people to look at her differently. When her teeth started rotting and stuff, and we went through all the levels of brushing the teeth and swabbing and swooshing and doing everything we could, but it just didn't work for her. And we chose as a family, and I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but we chose as a family to make sure she was comfortable over fighting with her and getting her anxious over that. And people had a really tough time, family and friends both, in terms of looking at it and reframing that. She still has a gorgeous smile. It looks different, but she's happy and she's content because she would hold on to that stress for amazingly long periods of time that we think that somebody with dementia is not able to do. And let me tell you, Mom knew how to hold on to that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's amazing how long emotions can last, even like a good thing, right? You have a great afternoon, a great outing, you just did something, and it made her feel so happy, and then the next morning she didn't remember at all that it happened, but that mood would last. And I think it's true for stressors as well as pleasures. That they we hold on to the emotional memory of it lodges in the body. No, I'm a big, one of the reasons I give the why it happens and what to try as opposed to what to do, because there is no one what to do. It's just lots of little things that you can try, and ultimately it's figuring out, what works for you and what works in your situation. And I think that's a really important thing. People start out, they want to do it quote unquote right, but there really is no one right. There may be an ideal, but that doesn't mean that it's right for you and your situation, and you have to figure out, what's worth the pain and what's worth the benefits.
Yeah, and even, I remember having an hour and a half long conversation. Actually, it was probably more of an argument than anything with the dentist, going, well, you have to, and we'll go in and we'll pull them, and we'll make her a new set, and I'm like, they're going to end up in a drawer. She's not going to know how to use those. They're going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to be very painful. She's not, and it was like, no, we're not doing that. It was just
that comes up a lot with medical screenings of different kinds too. Because sometimes people can be really upset by certain. My father ultimately didn't, quote unquote, die of Alzheimer's. He died of an untreated cancer. But he had a kidney cancer, and the biopsy, that they tried to get the biopsy the first time, was so traumatic for him. It was such a huge setback that it was my mother's wish at that point to just not do anything further. Like, they wanted to go in and do a second biopsy. And this was a man who already had fairly advanced dementia. I was like, what are you going to do? Confirm that it's cancer and then put him through chemotherapy and, all this what? I mean, that's an extreme example of, of what you're talking about, but I think there is a whole spectrum. And there's a lot of, discussion about, well, who needs, mammogram or this screening or that screening, and how do you decide? And again, the answer, I think, is different for every person and everybody's stage of disease and everybody's threshold of understanding what's going on. And that Dr. Leslie Curlison, the geriatrician who did a section in the book, talks a lot about weighing the benefits and the risks, and what are you getting out of it, and what are you putting into it. I mean, and it's a different calculus for everybody, but it's a really important one when you're talking about geriatrics and Alzheimer's.
I totally agree. Now, you mentioned the geriatrician. You had written this book really with this whole team of experts, from geriatricians to psychiatrists to pioneers in therapy. What was your favorite kind of takeaway piece that you learned from these individuals?
Well, I learned an awful lot, and everybody, has a wonderful catchphrase that seems to sum it up. So I was just thinking when we were talking just now, Duke's Lisa Gwyther, who started some of the very first support groups in this country, 30 or 40 years ago for Alzheimer's. Her big thing was always saying, there's no one right way to do things, which is what we were just talking about. And from Keep a Snow, I learned, behavior talks to you. Lisa Gibbons, big caregiving health advocate, likes to say, you are not alone. But one of my favorite things that I learned actually was not from one of the experts, but was from Lisa Gibbons' father. She's the TV personality who started the Lisa Gibbons Memory Foundation and has done lots of advocacy work. And her father cared for his wife, her mother, who had Alzheimer's. And one of my favorite things that's really resonated with me is he said, worrying about what's next or wishing that you could recapture the past only prevents you from living in the present moment. As flawed or difficult as that present moment may be, that's where life is at. And I just thought that's really a great, reframing of what you're dealing with. It's really about, being in the moment and cherishing the moment and getting through the moment and doing what's best or what seems best to you in the moment, and kind of letting go of kind of a lot of those day-to-day worries about the future or mournings about the past, and trying to just stay centered on the present moment. It's really hard advice, but I think it's really good advice.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's excellent advice, and not always an easy one to follow. That's for sure. I just want to throw out to our audience, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Paula, we'd love to hear those from you. So go ahead and jot those down in the chat box here, or you can call in again, and that number is 714-364-4757. Again, that's 714-364-4757. And we'd love to hear any comments that you have. I'm just looking at the notes here. Rick is saying I do a mentor program here locally through that health services department, and I meet with the newly diagnosed patients. So that's getting back to Pauline's comment from before, and said that it's a great thing to do for the family and for the patient, which, again, I think it's important to have these conversations, bring these things up, and help connect people to what's going on. Your book is, like I said, it's just it's a marvelous book. It's a great resource book for people to have. You also have noted in here some health problems, confusions that worsen with sudden delirium. And can you explain to our audience what delirium is? A lot of people don't know the difference there.
Yes. I had no idea until I actually experienced it and then went to learn more about it. Delirium is like dementia. It's a symptom. It's not a illness or disease, but it's a change, a sudden change in the level of awareness and confusion that's brought on by an underlying stress in the body. So it's incredibly common in people who are hospitalized, any older adult who's hospitalized. The numbers are, I don't have them at the top of my head, but the numbers are quite high. And people with dementia, it's especially high when they're hospitalized. Now, it could be caused by an underlying infection, like a urinary tract infection. It's very, very, very common, or dehydration, or any number of other things that are going on in the body, just a disorientation sometimes. If you're in the hospital and there's bright lights and you wear glasses and you wear dentures, but you don't have them anymore suddenly, and you don't know where you are, and it sends your body into this kind of stress. It's really important to be able to be aware of this, and because people in the hospital with dementia, it might just look like dementia to the hospital staff, but the person, and what really is a shift for them, what's a sudden change. The person gets either much more lethargic, or they can get much more amped up, or they can start talking, nonsense in a markedly different way from usual. And it's important to be able to flag that and note it, because sometimes that's your only way of, for the doctor to investigate and discover that there's a urinary tract infection that needs to be treated, or that the person is dehydrated and can't articulate it otherwise. So I learned so many fascinating things about delirium from Dr. Kernison, and it's just really one of those things that once you're aware of it, it's like, oh, aha, I see it and I can think that, as opposed to, they're just behaving more strangely, and I don't know what that is.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like once you know about UTIs, and everyone's like, there's no way that can be causing that, and it's like, oh, well, maybe it can, Let's see, we've got a question here. It says, my uncle with moderate Alzheimer's disease refuses to take off his shoes and socks and goes to bed with them for days. Any suggestions on how to encourage him to take those off? That's really a hard one. Sometimes what works for a lot of people is this sort of the neutral third party approach. Mm-hmm. So it's having a doctor appointment, and instead of it becoming like a power struggle between you make the doctor appointment and you include the doctor in ahead of time, and so that it's the doctor or the nurse or someone who's asking for that to be done, even as a chance to get the feet, or it's a podiatrist, a chance to get the
sort of washed and cared for. And sometimes just having that happen once can be kind of enough to break that cycle, and they become less resistant to it in the future. Or, after that one time, the very difficult to remove shoes, with the laces or whatever, sort of get disappeared, and it's easier on and easier off shoes and socks that that kind of gets replaced with after the third party has tried it. I've heard so many different kinds of creative things people have resorted to get certain things done. I mean, obviously, you've probably tried Logic, and it, you need to have your feet cleaned. But that just doesn't go anywhere. And so a lot of it is trying to, understand the why they might, be feeling that way. Does it have to do with being cold? Do they feel they have to, be able to escape and leave? Is there something about their past that in their former profession that might have made them be that way? But, really tough ones like that, a neutral third party can kind of really be a helpful way, because people sometimes tend to be more receptive when it's coming from someone else, as opposed to, especially when it's something that has already become a power struggle between us and them.
Mhm. Yeah, and it could be, which is difficult too, but it could be a matter of discomfort with the shoes off,
yes,
from cold feet, or it could be even some type of sore that feels better with pressure on it and stuff. So, I mean, there's so many different factors that could come into play, or it could just be, it's just too frustrating putting these dang things on and off. I'm just going to keep it on.
Well, frustrating or even painful, it just it hurts to get them off, because the toenails by now are so long, and they're digging in, and it's a pain point, and and maybe, like, being associated with a doctor or a podiatrist, it can become a pleasant experience because they know how to take care of whatever the problem is down there on the feet. It's a lot. It's so much detective work. It's like we should all have Nancy Drew hats on to try to figure out some of these things.
Exactly. But it's a good thing, that it's being noticed, because sometimes people don't even notice it. It could even be that they feel like they need to escape, and that they're not safe, and so they want to be ready to go. So there's lots of different angles, and I wish we had had the perfect answer for you, but we just don't. The other thing, I wanted just to note, too, is you talk about personal and family stressors in the book. And you talk about criticism and denial and disagreement and favoritism and lack of family help and relationship strains. Those, talk about hitting the nail on the head, when it comes to giving care. And then you also address, you've got a chapter on addressing emotional stressors, when you feel guilty or resentful, or you lose your temper or your patience, or when you're grieving. These are all really important things, or practical stressors, the lack of privacy, the lack of me time, sleep deprivation, which can be huge. So you've really done an absolutely fantastic job pulling this book together and making it user-friendly, and making it a powerful tool. And then at the end, you list, resources, a toolkit for caregivers. Can you highlight kind of what that looks like for people?
Yeah, it's sort of the everything else, part of the book. I had, I hear a lot about, like, burnout and depression are important things that everybody's at risk for, but nobody really wants to think about. And so I give some tools there to how to, recognize that in yourself. I talk through. I don't go into the book a lot about what is Alzheimer's, because I feel like a lot of people know, the basics. But I talk about different forms of staging and what that is. And as I said, warning signs of depression, and then just some sources of help. What is the local area agency on aging, and how do you find it, and what do different kinds of groups do? So in that section, I just wanted to put extra kinds of lists, or I think the burnout is in a quiz format, just added tools that can kind of further help, really relieve your stress and put you in a better place.
Mhm. Well, wonderful. Well, again, I want to thank you for spending so much time, with us today. As a wrap-up comment, I'm just going to go back to my little book report here that I got from Kathy, and she said the use of the bold print and the bullet points really made it easy to follow along and easy to read, and she really loved the resources and sources of help at the back end of the book. And she said, I've read many books on dementia and Alzheimer's, and this is one of the best. It would be an excellent book to purchase and have on hand as a resource or reference. And like I said, she spoke so highly of it. I didn't get it back. It was being passed amongst the group to review, and I know several people just went out and purchased a copy themselves. Were really very, very excited about the book and the way you pulled it together, and just made it so simple and easy. So again, I thank you very much for all the time that you've spent with us this morning. Again, if you're interested in purchasing the book, it's Surviving Alzheimer's: Practical Tips and what is it? I forgot the whole tagline there. You want to go ahead and say it?
Practical tips and soul-saving wisdom. There's that word again, right? It's our word of the day. Soul-saving wisdom for caregivers.
Yeah, and people can get that on Amazon, or you have a website, just www.survivingalzheimersbook.com, or they can go to paulaspencerscott.com as well. So again, thank you so much for your time with us today. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I thank you for sending me the book. It's definitely going for good use.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. I think I said to you before, every nice review or something that I hear is like getting a hug from my late dad, because that's really why I did it. So I appreciate it.
Well, wonderful. Well, best of luck to you, and we'll be promoting the book, for you and pushing that out when I go and speak. I'll mention it. It sounds like one of those books, if I ever get it back, that I won't let go.
Yeah, you'll have to get you your own.
Yeah, there's only a couple of them that I truly, because I get so many books that I really hold on and don't let out of my sight. And bring those to conferences to share, and this will be one of those added to that collection. So, thank you again.
Thanks.
Okay, you have a great week. Okay.
Thanks. You too. Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye. Well, we're going to go into kind of our mid-program highlights here of what's been going on. If you didn't listen to our last show, we had Molly Carpenter on with Home Instead, and she had written a great book that was, just another wonderful book. And then we had Paul Hornbeck on, who wrote a really neat devotional book as well. And so there were some wonderful tips that both parties gave on that show. Our next show is going to have Tanya Ward Goodman, and she wrote a memoir called Leaving Tinkertown. And that will be a fun show that we'll be looking forward to. This afternoon, we are going to be having our Dementia Chats, which is our free webinar where we interview experts, and those experts all are diagnosed with dementia, and the insights that they give us are really invaluable. And that starts at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central, 1 if you're Mountain Time, and noon Pacific Time. And I'll be putting a blog post out on that after the show. our last Dementia Chats was over a month ago, and that was in February. And we just had a great conversation about diagnosis and stages and medical professions and what they do and don't know and what they do and don't do so good and things. And it was a great conversation. They are all recorded. We should be getting back on schedule again. I apologize. We were kind of out of sync with my mother's passing here, but getting back on schedule again. For those of you that are not familiar with our resource directory on Alzheimer's Speaks, I would recommend that you go check that out. It was built as a collaborative resource directory, and so that means everybody can input resources. And in order to do that, you just go up to the big button at the top that says Partnering Options, Share That You Care. Click on that. You'll have to become a member. And once you are a member, it'll take you right to that page and it'll give you a registration form. Then just make sure that you save your username and your password. And then you can go into the resource directory and you can start uploading information. And so things that you can load would be books and YouTube's videos, it might be podcasts, it might be services from a company, it might be a speaker or a trainer or a coach or a consultant, it might be somebody's blog or newsletter that you find really valuable that you can go ahead and upload and share with others. Maybe it's a film, maybe it's somebody's poetry. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be yours to share. You don't have to own it. It's really about sharing and pushing things out that people need. We also have a long list under caring support services that goes in alphabetical order from abuse and neglect to talks about accessibility and adult daycare, advocacy. It might have to do with arts. Maybe it's an association. Could be business to business. Might be a dementia-friendly community. I mean, the list just kind of goes on and on. So I would really recommend that you go ahead and participate in that. And again, share that you care. My second guest has not arrived yet, so I am going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about a couple of things that were on the blog. One was a post that our intern Michelle did called Favorite Things, and if you haven't read that, I would recommend that you go read that. Sometimes we forget about our favorite things. And then there is also a link to the talk show that I did on KTLK AM 1130, and we were just talked about dementia. We covered a wide variety of things, but that was fun with Siri Free, and I appreciate her having me on her show. Again, for those that are looking for resources, I'm just going to mention a few. Again, Alzheimer's Disease International is the association of all associations around the world. So if you're looking for a place to be able to help you find one that is an association that's close to you, Alzheimer's Disease International could help you there. There's also the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, the Lewy Body Association, the Alzheimer's Studies Group, that is doing some clinical trials, and so they would be great to check on there. The Alzheimer's Frontal Temporal Lobe Association, and the National Aphasia Association. That's when people have a difficulty talking. Music First with Choral Health. Again, music has such a great impact on us and can be a marvelous way to change our moods and change our attitudes. Puzzle with Me has devised some great puzzles that are age-appropriate and size-appropriate for people dealing with dementia, as well as the Jiminy Wicket program, which is a croquet game. They actually do education to schools and connect the schools and and the children, the schools, along with memory care, and they get together and play croquet. It's pretty fun and pretty fascinating at the same time. So that would be a wonderful thing to do. I don't know if any of you have heard, but with the Purple Angel program, but there is a new song that they just launched, and so I am going to go ahead and find that, and we will play that. Sure that we will as soon as I find it. I had it right here, and of course I lost it. Maybe it, that's weird. It's not in here. I loaded it. I saw it load. Oh, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and play this song. Again, the Purple Angel is all about raising awareness. Here we go.
I know your name, I swear I do. It's on the tip of my tongue. Sorry, what did you say? I've known you for how long? Your face is so familiar, but no name comes to mind. Please, can you remind me if you'll be so kind? Staring out into space, asking God to hear my case. Trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? The purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me. Purple angel, oh purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me. You're next to me. Changing times are all around. Walking songs are falling down. Looking skyward from the ground. These are changing times. Straining, listening to every sound. In the midst of the night, shadows abound. Memories and people gone by. Adults laugh, but children cry. And purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me. And purple angel, oh purple angel, you're next to me, next to me. Gently shaking sun and frown. These are times you do not see. I'm at my loneliness. Oh, but this is me. Friends and family all around. Children play with much abound. Yet I'm still feeling all alone. And in my mind I'm on my own with purple angel. Oh, purple angel, you're next to me. Purple angel, oh purple angel, you're next to me. You're next to me. You're next to me.
Well, it's a beautiful song that was developed by Norms, and as he says, his angels sing the song. So if you're not familiar with the Purple Angel Project, that is something that you may want to check into. And you can do that actually on AlzheimersSpeaks.com. Just go to our About page, and there we have a side tab that you just click on, and we'll talk about the purple angel. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's the new global symbol for dementia. So finally, we're going to have one symbol that can be recognized around the world that's not going to have any language barriers at all. It was designed basically by somebody with dementia, by Norms and Jane Moore, and it's just kind of running all around the world, and it's quite fascinating, and it's extremely powerful. And it really is designed for multiple reasons. The main one is to raise awareness and education on all types of dementia, because a lot of times we were using the word Alzheimer's, but there's so many different types of dementia, and we need support and research for all of them. So it's pulling them all together, no matter if you're a person diagnosed or if you're a person caring for somebody who has dementia. We all need to work together. It's also about helping to remove the fear and the isolation and the stigmas associated with the disease by branding it like we have with breast cancer. People are proud to wear their pink ribbons, and we need to get that momentum behind the purple angel. It's really about pulling us together as a globe and knowing that we can work economically and collaboratively together to make a difference with this. In order to use the symbol, you can go ahead and contact me or one of the other ambassadors, and then you'll receive a poster or a PDF of the poster that Norms has pulled together. And you, if you are a business owner, you just have your employees read this. And it's an educational process. It's not about having all the answers. It's just about having the conversation, which is so important to all of us in terms of having the conversation. Very, very critical in terms of mindset in order to be able to remove and move forward with with the stigmas in getting those pushed out of the way. It's looking like my second guest is not going to be able to make the show today. I don't know what exactly happened, but once in a while that can occur. And so instead of just filling air time here, which I can usually do without a problem, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show, and I'll just get Vicki rescheduled on the show here. Vicki is an educational trainer and writer, and she had kind of switched gears due to both of her parents being diagnosed with dementia, and so we will get her back to talk about her book, Somebody Stole My Iron, at another time. It's kind of a fun title for a book, and it's an interesting read, and so we'll just go from there. But in the meantime, have a wonderful week, and again, if you can join us this afternoon for Dementia Chats, we'd love to have you do that. It's a webinar based, and all you have to do is click a link. I know that there was an update, so it might tell you that you need to update a flash player, but it will guide you how to do that. So again, I thanks for all the participation today in the show, and please feel free to pass this link on to others, share it on your Facebook page, email it to your friends. Again, it takes all of us to pass the information along so that we can get these conversations going. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesta here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now, this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.